Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna. We're reading from the Madhya Lila, chapter 19 on our CC Saturday. And this is where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is instructing Srila Rupa Goswami, and starting at text 168. So Madhya 19, 168. Anya vancha anya puja chali jnana karma anukulye sarvendriye krishna nusilana. A pure devotee must not cherish any desire other than to serve Krishna. You should not offer worship to the demigods or to mundane personalities. He should not cultivate artificial knowledge, which is devoid of Krishna consciousness, and he should not engage himself in anything other than Krishna conscious activities. One must engage all one's purified senses in the service of the Lord. This is the favorable execution of Krishna conscious activities. Eshuddha bhakti iha haite prema haya pancharatre bhagavate lakshana kaya. These activities are called Shuddha bhakti, pure devotional service. If one renders such pure devotional service, he develops his original love for Krishna in due course of time. In Vedic literatures like the Pancharatras and Srimad Bhagavatam, these symptoms are described. Purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. One has to develop his devotional service under the directions of a pure devotee, the spiritual master, and in accordance with the Vedic directions given in the Pancharatra and Bhagavata systems. The Pancharatra system includes methods of temple worship, and the Bhagavat system includes the spreading of Krishna conscious philosophy through the recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam and the discussion of philosophy with people who are interested. Through discussion, one can create an interest and understanding of the Pancharatra and Bhagavat systems. Sarvopadi vinirmuktam tatparatvena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhaktiruchyate. Bhakti, or devotional service, means engaging all our senses in the service of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the master of all the senses. When the spirit soul renders service under the Supreme, there are two side effects. One is freed from all material designations, and one's senses are purified simply by being employed in the service of the Lord. Purport: this verse, quoted from the Narada Pancharatra, is found in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which, as we know, is written by Srila Rupa Goswami. Text 171. Madguna sruti matrena mai sarva guhashaye manogatira vichina yata gangam bashom buddho. Just as the celestial waters of the Ganges flow unobstructed into the ocean, so when my devotees simply hear of me, their minds come to me. I reside in the hearts of all. This verse and the following 3 verses are quoted from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 29, texts 11 through 14. They were spoken by Lord Krishna in the form of Kapila Dev. Lakshanam bhakti yogasya nirgunasya hyudahritam ayaduki avyavahita ya bhakti purushotame. These are the characteristics of transcendental loving service to Purushottama, Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is causeless, and it cannot be obstructed in any way. Salokya sarstri samipya sarupya gatvamapyuta diyamanam nagrinati vinamatsevanam jana. My devotees do not accept salokya, sarsti, sarupya, samipya, or oneness with me, even if I offer these liberations in preference to serving me. Saiva bhakti yoga hya atyantika udarita yena tirrajya trigunam madbhavayo papadyate. Bhakti yoga, as described above, is the ultimate goal of life. By rendering devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one transcends the modes of material nature and attains the spiritual position on the platform of direct devotional service. Bhukti mukti adi vancha yadi mane haya sadhana karile prema utpana nahaya. If one is infected with a desire for material enjoyment or material liberation, he cannot rise to the platform of pure loving service unto the Lord, even though he may superficially render devotional service according to the routine regulative principles. Purport. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur mentions that if one maintains within his heart the desire to enjoy the result of good work, or, being embarrassed by the material world, the desire to get out of material entanglement, one will never be able to attain the transcendental mellows of devotional service. In other words, one must not desire material profit when rendering devotional service. Even if one follows all the 64 regulative principles, he cannot attain pure devotional service with a contaminated heart. So that's a really interesting statement. Because we know Prabhupada has told us that actually the desire to get out of the material world is a pretty good impetus for sticking with Krishna consciousness or executing the bhakti process. And indeed, in the beginning particularly, I will say that that definitely is the impetus, because if one has come to Krishna consciousness and wants to execute sadhana bhakti, pretty much can assume that on some level that personality is a kinchana gochara, or just exhausted, materially exhausted. So it's kind of a fine line between, I'm going to say, not wanting to get out of here and doing the seva, but then at some point, the service itself is actually the great reward, the satisfaction, serving Krishna and his constant reciprocation with one when you serve is very sweet. And then the satisfaction in the heart is there that, okay, as long as I'm continue to stay on this level of devotional service, then everything's good, no matter if I go to hell or if I stay here or if I go up. And in that regard, yeah, the desire is purified. The actual intention is purified. Because Krishna is always reciprocating with us in different interesting ways as we go through our day in devotional service. And actually, devotional service with that in mind, with no expectation of anything, becomes very joyful and also very exciting, because one never knows what's going to happen from one day to the next. And in that way, it's kind of, it keeps you guessing, and it keeps you going, keeps me wanting to see what's around the next corner and around the next corner. So devotional service is very satisfying in that way. Text 176. Bhukti mukti spriha yavat pishachi hridi vartate tavad bhakti sukashyatra katam abhyudayo bhavet. The material desire to enjoy the material world and the desire to become liberated from material bondage are considered to be two witches, and they haunt one like ghosts. As long as these witches remain within the heart, how can one feel transcendental bliss? As long as these two witches remain in the heart, there is no possibility of enjoying the transcendental bliss of devotional service. This verse is found in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1-22. Yesterday I was listening to a class by His Holiness Sri Krishna Das Goswami in Sydney, Australia, and he was talking about this very subject, because the enjoyment of the transcendental bliss of devotional service actually supersedes, or it transcends those desires, of which we all have. That's a daily battle. The material desire to enjoy the material world. That's practically an hourly battle, I will say, that one must constantly be on alert for. And then the other sort of witch, becoming liberated from material bondage. This world's not a place for ladies and gentlemen, so we definitely strive to someday get out. But as my spiritual master was saying yesterday, we can't really think about that. We can't think about what our spiritual position is, what our siddha deha is. We can't think in those terms if we're really focused in the now on executing devotional service, and that's really something that personally I feel like it's difficult to do, especially with our conditioning. Being in the now, actually really being fully invested minute by minute in whatever you're doing, whatever service you're doing. But I will attest that it comes to a point that you can't really lament about the past, and I can't think about the future very much, because one, it's not set, the future isn't set, and two, it can be a little daunting. So actually, if we just keep the humble position, this was actually the purport of the class, just keeping that humble position and not thinking of these sort of rewards or benefits that we might get out of devotional service, because we might and we might not, right? We just have to, be in the moment and enjoy devotional service, actually, and if we think about it, we're so fortunate. I mean, what's not to enjoy? Here we are right now. We're here, we're listening to these wonderful scriptures, of which 99.9% of the population has no idea about, but somehow we're getting the great fortune of hearing from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, speaking to Rupa Goswami, and understanding that it's a really rare, it's a rare boon that we get, So being grateful for what we have, a safe place, and sadhu sangha, and all this beauty. Yesterday, Chaitanya Charan was out here talking about how We're secluded. We're not in the town center. We're not in the city center, but we're so close to everything. He said he was just actually, I've heard that from him before. We're uniquely situated here, and we're wonderfully situated here. And we have plenty of prasadam, and we really have nothing to fear so much, So there's just so much right this second that we can be grateful for, and grateful, of course, for our service, grateful for our health, grateful for each other, grateful for the holy names, having the opportunity to chant that. There's so much to be grateful for, and having that attitude of gratitude really sort of puts one into perspective of, oh wow, here I am, I'm this infinitesimal speck in the universe. I'm here at this moment, and I'm able to execute Krishna consciousness. What can be better? Nothing can be better. We're so fortunate, So we can't think about these two witches haunting us like ghosts, because they'll be there. They're there, but, we just sort of have to ignore and neglect those things, because it's just in the mind. If we use our intelligence and think about all of our blessings, think about our position, think about what there is to do, think about serving Prabhupada, think about sharing Krishna consciousness with others, think about how important that is. That's the only way we're going to affect any change in this world, is to try to share Krishna consciousness with others. So, the two witches in the heart kind of take a back seat. They're back there, and they're sometimes they're popping up, material enjoyment, material liberation, they're popping up. But it's just not very important for us, in our position. Sadhana bhakti haite haya rati raduya rati gada haili tara prema namakaya. By regularly rendering devotional service, one gradually becomes attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When the attachment is intensified, it becomes love of Godhead. And here's the purport. The Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 122 gives the following information about sadhana bhakti. Kriti sadhya bhavet sadhya bhavasa sadhana bida nitya siddhasya bhavasya praktatyam friti sadhyata. The process of devotional service, beginning with chanting and hearing, is called sadhana bhakti. This includes the regulative principles that are intended to awaken one to devotional service. Devotional service is always dormant in everyone's heart, and by the offenseless chanting of the holy names of the Lord, one's original dormant Krishna consciousness is awakened. This awakening to Krishna consciousness is the beginning of sadhana bhakti. This can be divided into many different parts, including faith, association with devotees, initiation by the spiritual master, engagement in devotional service under the instructions of a spiritual master, steadiness in devotional service, and the awakening of the taste for devotional service. In this way, one can become attached to Krishna and his service, and when this attachment is intensified, it results in ecstatic love for Krishna. The word rati is explained in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.3.41 as follows. Yatama shrinte vantar lakshate rati lakshanam mumukshu prabhritinam jed bhaveresha ratir nahi. When a tenderness of the heart is manifested, there is rati, or attachment. But those who are interested in being liberated from material bondage will not manifest this tenderness. This attachment is not like material attachment. When one is free of material contamination, attachment for Krishna's service awakens and is called rati. In the material world, there is attachment for material enjoyment, but this is not rati. Transcendental rati can be awakened only on the spiritual platform. Ecstatic love for Krishna, prema, is described in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 141 as follows. Samyanma Srinita Svanto Mamadvati Shanyankita Bhavasa Eva Sandratma Udaye Prema Negadyate. When the heart is completely softened and devoid of all material desires, and when one's emotional feelings become very strong, one becomes very much attached to Krishna. Such purified emotion is known as pure love. And we were hearing yesterday from the same class I was describing that prema, we've been hearing all this as well in the pastime of Krishna with Rukmini. Prema can actually only be attained by pure humility. And many of the acharyas have been propounding that in these purports, that humility, abject humility, basically leads to prema, or it kind of equals prema. You can't have prema without humility. And what's being discussed here, the faith and association with devotees, and initiation by a spiritual master, and engagement in devotional service under the instructions of a spiritual master, and that steadiness, being fixed, nishta, and then that awakens the taste for pure devotional service, which leads to prema. It's a very, I'm going to say, it's not difficult. It's actually it's simple and sublime, as Prabhupada would say, this sadhana bhakti and this devotional service, because just following it and in a sincere and determined and with humility type of way, the results are guaranteed. We really don't. There's not really. I mean, it doesn't, there's an endeavor, obviously, for devotional service, but, if we think about this endeavor and what the result will be is Krishna prema. I mean, it seems like a drop in the bucket to do these sorts of things, So we have this process, and again, we're so fortunate to have this process, but just following this process, it's simple and sublime, but I suppose it's probably not easy, because there's many things along the way that can derail us, and that's Maya Devi's job. One time I heard Maya Devi is sort of like the gatekeeper, or the person that holds the keys to Goloka Vrindavan, basically, because not everybody belongs there right now. Everybody still is working out their anarthas. They're kind of trying to become purified. And so that takes time. So as long as we're just showing up and trying our best and sincere and humble, then, the result's guaranteed. We don't have to worry. We can just keep doing what we're doing, and it's seamless. If we just are serving constantly, serving, and we're just 100% absorbed, one day we'll look around and think, oh wow, I'm not in New Goloka anymore. Now I'm in Goloka Vrindavan. Wow, I didn't even, what? Yeah, New Goloka is Goloka. It's a portal. Text 178. Prema vriddhi krame nama sneha mana pranaya raga nuraga bhava mahabhava haya. The basic aspects of prema, when gradually increasing to different states, are affection, abhorrence, love, attachment, further attachment, ecstasy, and great ecstasy. Purport. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 3.284, sneha, affection, is described as follows. Sandras chitta dravan kurvam prema sneha itiryate Shani kashapi nehashad vishleshasha sahisnuta. That aspect of prema in which the melting of the heart for the lover is concentrated is called sneha, or affection. The symptom of such affection is that the lover cannot for a moment remain without the association of the beloved. A description of mana can be found in Madhya Lila, chapter 2, verse 66. Similarly, a description of pranaya is also there. As far as raga is concerned, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 3.287 says, Sneha saragoyenasya sukam dukam apisputam tat sambandha lave pyatra priti pranavyayarapi. That stage at which infection for the beloved converts unhappiness into happiness is called raga, or attachment. When one has such attachment for Krishna, he can give up his own life to satisfy his beloved Krishna. Anuraga, bhava, and mahabhava are described in the 6th chapter of the Madhya Lila, verse 13. The purport to that verse explains Adi Ruda Mahabhava. And that's what we're trying to do, is follow the raganugas, or those that are attached very, very tightly to the lotus feet of Krishna. Follow that ragatmika devotee. And I'm going to read text 13, just as a little side note, to speak about these ecstatic symptoms. Aniruddha bhavayanra tanrae vikara manushera deki deki pada chamatkara. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya considered the uncommon ecstatic symptoms of Adiruddha Bhava are appearing in the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is very wonderful. How are they possible in the body of a human being? Purport. Adiruddha Bhava, or Adiruddha Mahabhava, is explained in the Ujjvala Nilamani of Srila Rupa Goswami. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur quotes Rupa Goswami as follows. The loving propensity of the Ashraya devotee toward the Vishaya Lord becomes so ecstatic that even after enjoying the company of the beloved, the devotee feels that his enjoyment is insufficient. At such time, the lover sees the beloved in different ways. Such a development of ecstasy is called anuraga. When anuraga reaches its highest limit and becomes perceivable in the body, it is called bhava. When the bodily symptoms are not very distinct, however, the emotional state is still called anuraga, not bhava. When bhava ecstasy is intensified, it is called mahabhava. The symptoms of mahabhava are visible only in the bodies of eternal associates, like the gopis. So that's a very high level for us to understand what the gopis are feeling with Krishna, and which is why we must follow these ragatmika devotees to try to understand that a little bit more, so we can understand how to serve Krishna in even a minuscule way as the gopis do. Text 179. Yaichi bija ikshurasa guda kanda shara sakara sita michari uttama michari ara. The gradual development of prema may be compared to different states of sugar. First, there is the seed of the sugar cane, then sugar cane, and then the juice extracted from the cane. When this juice is boiled, it forms liquid molasses, then solid molasses, then sugar, candy, rock candy, and finally lozenges. So as we get purified in this sadhana bhakti process, we do have that opportunity to go through this sugar cane, through lozenge, transformation. We're in our stage now when we're in sadhana bhakti for cocooning. We're transforming to the higher level and the next stage. And we do strive for that in our devotional service. Not that it's going to give us any material reward, but striving to understand Krishna and understand his pastimes and be eager to read the books by the Goswamis, particularly Rupa Goswami, who is right now hearing from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and composing literatures like the Ujjvala Nilamani and the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and all of these things for us to learn from and try to understand. We can reach that level of prema. You know, that's actually, that's not unattainable. It's a very lofty goal, but Prabhupada has given us this simple and sublime and perfect process to do this, you know. As we sit here, we're hearing from these scriptures and all the things aforementioned, particularly remaining super grateful and super humble and just taking it all in. All benefit will be bestowed upon us. You know, we don't have to hanker and lament. You know, we have to endeavor, and we have to show up every day and try our very best and curb our offensive mind and, you know, work on our own anartas and, you know, try to correct ourselves. I was just listening to Prabhupada say that before we want to know about what our siddha deha is, we have to correct ourselves. You know, we have to actually look at ourselves and think, okay, there's this. And some things, you know, are really deep-rooted. And some things, some of our anartas are going to take many years through the rest of our life to try to dig out, you know, because even if we dig them out, you know, still while we're in the material world and we're not purified, they're going to keep trying to rear up. Like, you know, that one pimple that you get that seems to reoccur, right, somewhere, usually somewhere unsightly. You know, things just keep cropping up. And we can't give up trying to dig it out because it's uncomfortable. You know, these anarthas are very uncomfortable. And if we're kind of quiet sometimes and we're observing ourselves, we've stepped out of ourselves to observe ourselves, and we see those things, you know, it's like, oh, you know, you recoil and it's like, wow, you know, that just keeps coming up. And how do I get around it to dig it out this way? The last time I was in, I was thinking about this earlier, the last time I was in Govardhan last year, we do the tour of Govindakund and, you know, Govardhan Parikram. And in Govindakund, or on the banks of Govindakund, is where Madhavendra Puri had his sitting place. And he would sit there and he would, you know, chant all the names of Krishna, and he would write, and he would, you know, absorb and do the things that, you know, the great Madhavendra Puri did. And near his sitting place is this huge, very old tree, and it's a kalpavriksha tree, actually. They say all the trees in Govardhan are kalpavriksha, but this one, it's literally just adjacent to Madhavendra Puri's sitting place, is you can feel it. It's really, really special. And when we go there, you know, everybody's encouraged to sort of embrace the tree and ask the tree for benediction. It's a kalpavriksha tree. It's a wish-fulfilling tree, you know, so you make a wish, right? And whenever I've been there, you know, over several years, many years, I always kind of wish for the same thing, pure devotional service, right? You know, that's the first thing. And it's a term, it's sort of a catch-all term, right? Pure devotional service. But the last time I was there, I got an opportunity to go a few times. And, usually it's only once, but the second time I went, I immediately thought, okay, I always ask for the same thing. Maybe I should ask for something different. But I want to ask. I want this pure devotional service. So it just seems like it keeps popping in my head. But then the next thing I thought, which I was so happy to think about, was, okay, what does that mean? What does that mean? What thing or things, probably many, do I personally need to execute pure devotional service? What do I need to get to that point? How do I get to that point? I was thinking this in my head while at the tree. And then I was praying to Madhavendra Puri, because he's right there, he's right over there. And, just drilling down, and he said, you have to be free from your anartas. And what's the main anartas? What one gives me the trouble, personally? I'm just being really vulnerable here, but I'm not really an angry person. I don't really fly off the handle. I've never really been, full of a temper and, hairpin trigger. And greed, I'm not really interested in stuff or money. Envy, that's always a base level anarta. I feel like that is the root of all the other anartas in a lot of ways. So what's the last glaring anarta? Lust. And so I prayed to the Kalpavriksha tree, let me be free of this lust. I need to be free of this lust to get to the level of, prema. I need to get rid of that. Just get rid of it. Get rid of it. Just help me. And I prayed 3 times to, 2 actually, after I identified that as my biggest main problem. Because, these are the things that create in our material consciousness, like it's talking about material enjoyment, the 2 witches in the heart. Material enjoyment and material liberation. And lust is quite insidious. It pops up in so many different ways. It's not just plainly something that, you feel in the body. It's all sorts of things that you go through your mind, that you covet, that you want, and not really in a greedy way, but just to enjoy. Lust in the material world translates to material enjoyment. That's a base level. And, as we work through ourselves and we're introspective and, we identify those things that are hindering our path of bhakti, are hindering our path in devotional service, and ultimately our attainment of Krishna prema, of which that is our goal, whether we're in this world or another world or in hell or whatever, that's what we aspire for, is Krishna prema. As we go through to that end, go through our lives through this journey, drilling down with ourselves to see what our Achilles heel is, what gives us the most problems, what do we need to root out, dig it out. Maybe it takes years, but we got to dig it out. We got to do it. It's unpleasant and it's dirty work, and sometimes you don't like yourself, and sometimes you feel like, I'm in over my head, or, you want to run away, or, there's so many feelings that go through with that, trying to root out those anartas, but it's the dirty work that needs to be done. We got to do this dirty work. And we get a lot of energy and assistance, support, love, reciprocation from chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We get a lot from that. That's sort of our power source in this material world. If we're worshiping the deities, obviously that's above and beyond. That's extra purification, and extra energy, and extra support, and extra reciprocation. The deity worship is so essential, and that's why actually Prabhupada gave us the deity worship in Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga is not really meant for deity worship. That's from a bygone yuga. And I remember actually asking one time Hridayananda Goswami, because he was talking about the yugas and what the dharmas were in different yugas, and I said, so why do we have deity worship in Kali Yuga when it's not prescribed? It's not prescribed in Kali Yuga. He said, because Prabhupada knew we needed it. That's what we need. That's extra purifying. Chanting the Maha Mantra, depending on your level of Shuddha Nam, or, Namabash, Namaparad, depending on how you're chanting, that may or may not, the purifying is starts and stops, and it will continue as long as one chants. But with the deity worship, particularly direct altar, directly serving Krishna in that very intimate way, and having to absorb into that service of serving him in that intimate way, that's in the mood of the gopis. And we're, who's at that level actually? But just because you're attempting to step into that arena to be in that mood of the gopis, just that you're trying, just because you're showing up on the altar to take that purification in that way, Krishna reciprocates so sweetly and so divinely and in so many ways, And the purification with that is tenfold or more, depending on what exactly service is being done on the altar. So, as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is relating all these points to Rupa Goswami, Rupa Goswami is putting everything down in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, or as we know it better, the nectar of instruction. Devotion. It's an easy read, and it's actually just all condensed into this one, this one nice literature that Prabhupada extracted and gave us to study, to study ongoing. The more we hear and see about the importance of these things, the more we can, engage ourselves in these things, because, we're all at different levels of purification. We're all at different levels in our bhakti practice. And, the further we get in and the deeper we go, what it seems like is the more we can kind of grasp, the more we can understand from these literatures. And I'm sure everybody can attest, if you read the Bhagavad Gita or the Nectar Devotion early in your Krishna consciousness, and then you read it again a few years later, and then a few years later, and there's always something new. There's always like this new perspective, this more rounded, fresh perspective that we can glean from these literatures. So certainly reading again and again these things is absolutely necessary for us to traverse all of the pitfalls, and to also, I'm going to say, reading and chanting tamps down those two witches in the heart that are constantly haunting us like ghosts. I love that analogy. It's a very fitting analogy, and it's scary sounding, and you know what? It is. It is, because at any minute, bhakti, this practice, is like a razor's edge, Prabhupada said. You can fall off at any minute if you're not extremely careful how you're conducting yourselves and how you're treating others and what your actions are. It's extremely, it's scary sometimes. And, you have all these things pressing down on you, and, the witches in the heart haunting you, but we have the japa, and we have so many things that can give us solace when we have these bubbles that pop up. So I think we're out of time, or we could have had discussion. Just, did you want to say something? No? Okay. Okay, yeah, we're out of time. Thank you so much for your attention. All glories to the Chaitanya Charitamrita. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Rupa Goswami. All glories to the Chief Rupanuga, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sri Sri Radhikalokananda ki jai.
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Marhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandar Ako Vidamaniya Vishesha Shobha Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Andani Yasa Sakalen Driya Priti Manti Vasyan Vipan Kayanti Jiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami 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 Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham
Gokula Charuni Mandala Mahite Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Dayate Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Dayate Damodara Rati Vadana Veshe Hariniskyuta Vrinda Vipineshe Damodara Rati Vadana Veshe Hariniskyuta Vrinda Vipineshe Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Dayate Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Dayate Vishabhanudari Navashashilake Lalita Saki Guna Ramita Vishake Vishabhanudari Navashashilake Lalita Saki Guna Ramita Vishake Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Dayate Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Dayate Karunam Kuru Mai Karuna Parite Sanaka Sanatana Vanita Charite Karunam Karur Mai Karunam Parite Sanaka Sanatana Vanita Charite Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Dayate Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Dayate Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Dayate Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Dayate Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Shri Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Shri Radhe Jaya Radha Golokananda Radha Golokananda Shri Radhe Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Shri Vrindavan Dham. Jaya Gaura Nitai, Gaura Nitai, Gaura Nitai, Jaya Gaura Nitai. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Gurudev. O Radha, all glories unto you, all glories unto you, beloved of Madhava, object of worship for all the young girls of Gokula. You dress yourself in such a way as to increase Lord Damodar's love and attachment for you. You are the controller of Vrindavan, the pleasure groves of Lord Hari. You are a new moon arisen from the ocean of King Vrishabhanu. You are the friend of Lalita, and your wonderful qualities, friendliness, kindness, and faithfulness to Krishna, endear you to Vishaka. You are an ocean of compassion, and your divine characteristics are described by the four Kumaras, Sanaka, Sanatana, Sananda, and Sanat Kumara. O Radha, please be merciful unto me. Srila Rupa Goswami ki jai. Haribo. Jai. Today, Harinam Sankirtan in Cary at Bond Park at 2 p.m. Please join us. There'll be a lot of people out. It's going to be a really nice day, and have some music in the park for the pleasure of the fallen conditioned souls. Cheto Darpana Marjanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam Sreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhi Vadanam Pratipanam Purnam Niswadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Baram Vijayate Sri Krishna Sana Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Nitam Itamanabasmane Nakalaha Etadrisi Tavakripan Bhagavan Bamapi Durdaiva Midri Shangiha Ganina Nuragaha Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Shahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Va Jagadisha Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmanishvare Bhavatad Bhaktira Hetuki Twai Ayi Nandan Tanuja Kinkaram Patitamam Vishame Bhavam Buddho Kripaya Tava Para Pankaja Stita Duli Sadrishyam Vinchintaya Nayanam Kalura Suradaraya Vadanam Gadgara Rudargira Pulakar Nichitam Vabukada Tava Namagram Neva Vishati Yuga Yitam Nimeshena Chakshusha Pravishayitam Sunyayitam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Vinahena Me Ashti Shava Padaratam Rastumam Adarshanam Marmahatam Garutava Yutatatal Pranas to Sevana Paraha. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is a prime benefit because it spreads the rays of can render all benedictions to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda, In these transcendental names, you've invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respects to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire for, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your just devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other in the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me with one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire... What happened? Up my hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name. O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one, Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me brokenhearted by him. For me, he is completely free to do anything and everything. My worshipful Lord, unconditionally.